Saxon Wharf, Southampton, England, May 28, 2026. A company announces a phased end to boat production at one of Britain's most prestigious blue water sailing yards. The press release is measured. Current builds will not be affected, it says. Future orders are secure, it says. A buyer who has already wired a deposit on a multi-million-pound cruising yacht reads that sentence and exhales. He should not. That exact assurance was issued once before, in 2018, weeks before 160 people lost their jobs and unfinished hulls sat behind the locked gates of administration. The buyers who had paid for those hulls did not own them. The administrators did. This is Oyster Yachts. And this is the second time the same yard has run the same sequence. This is not misfortune. It is a ledger entry that was always going to come due. The closure announcement is the symptom. The mechanism is what happens to your money the instant a builder files for administration. Under UK insolvency law, a customer who has paid a deposit on an undelivered yacht is an unsecured creditor. That is not an insult. It is a rank. It means you stand at the back of the line behind the banks, behind the tax authority, behind the staff redundancy claims, waiting for whatever is left after everyone in front of you has been paid in full. On a collapsed boat builder, what is left is usually pennies. The two columns of this story are simple. The first column is the brand, heritage, hand-laid hulls, a price tag north of £1 million, and a promise of a yacht built to cross oceans. The second column is the insolvency waterfall, where that same promise is reclassified as an unsecured claim worth a fraction of what was paid. The distance between those two columns is the entire video. If you want the forensic record, the marine press will not print in full. Subscribe to Yachts and Boats. We read the insolvency filings, so you read them before you sign, not after. One question for the comments. Have you ever put a deposit down on a new build? And did anyone show you the escrow clause before you wired the money? Drop it below. Now, the yard itself. Oyster Yachts was founded in 1973 by Richard Matthews on the east coast of England. The premise was a specific kind of boat, not a coastal weekender, a heavy blue water cruising yacht built to carry a couple across the Atlantic and around the world in comfort. For roughly 4 decades, that premise built one of the most respected names in British sailing. The boats were hand-laid. The deck saloon layout became a signature. Owners did not just buy hulls. They joined a fleet, sailed company-organized world rallies, and treated the brand as a community. That is the ideal column. A founder, a workforce of skilled laminators and joiners, and a product so durable that a well-kept example from the 1980s is still crossing oceans today. Hold on to that durability. It matters later because it is the exact reason the new build math fails the buyer. A boat that lasts 40 years is a boat that competes with its own past output forever. The used market never empties. New production must always be sold against the cheaper, proven hull already floating. That single fact sits underneath every collapse in this industry, and it sat underneath Oyster long before 2026. The ideal was real. The arithmetic underneath it was never kind. Here is how a deposit actually works, and why the assurance in the press release is a contradiction. A new build cruising yacht is not paid for at delivery. It is paid for in stages. A buyer typically commits a deposit on signing, then makes scheduled payments as the build hits milestones: hull molded, deck joined, engine in, systems commissioned. Across the industry, that front-loaded portion commonly runs from 20 to 40% of the total contract before the yacht is anywhere near finished. On a £1.5 million contract, 30% is £450,000. Now follow that money. The buyer assumes the payment is sitting in a dedicated account, reserved for that specific hull. In most standard build contracts, it is not. Your deposit funds the company, not your boat. The deposit flows into the builder's general operating account, where it pays wages, suppliers, rent on the yard, and the cash flow gap created by the half-finished boats of every other customer. This is the trap, and it is structural. When production stops, the buyer does not own the fiberglass curing in the mold. He owns a contractual claim against a company that has just run out of money. The administrators take control of the physical assets, including that partially built hull, on behalf of the secured creditors. The buyer's £450,000 has already been spent. It was converted into last quarter's payroll the day it arrived. So when the company says current builds will not be affected, ask the only question that matters. Affected by what, and paid for with whose money? You cannot finish a yacht while you are dismissing the workforce that lays the laminate. A phased end to production and an intact order book are not two facts. They are one contradiction wearing a press officer's grammar. The contract is the asset. The boat belongs to the administrator. This is not theory. It is the documented record of 2018. In 2018, Oyster Yachts entered administration. Around 160 jobs were lost. Unfinished hulls and unsecured creditors were left in legal limbo, exactly where the insolvency waterfall puts them. The company was then acquired out of administration by entrepreneur Richard Hadida, and the marine press hailed it as a rescue of the brand, a rescue of the name, the molds, and the goodwill. Read the word carefully, because here is what a rescue out of administration does and does not do. It buys the assets clean. It does not, as a rule, assume the old company's debts to its unsecured creditors. The brand walks across the road into a new corporate shell. The deposit holders of the failed company stay behind in the liquidation with their fractional claim. The boats survived. The name survived. The financial obligation to the people who had paid in advance was the thing that did not survive. That is the 2018 ledger, and it is the precise blueprint for 2026. On May 28, 2026, the same brand announced a phased end to production at the same Saxon Wharf site in Southampton. Redundancy consultations were confirmed across manufacturing, support, and administrative roles. The same reassurance about current and future orders appeared. A returning viewer of this channel has seen this exact mechanism before, wearing an American accent. A previous investigation on this channel, the one on 10 classic builders, documented how a single conglomerate, Bangor Punta, acquired beloved sailboat names in the 1960s and ran them as line items in a leisure portfolio until the margins fell below threshold. The brands were bought, run for cash, and shut. The molds were sold, scattered, or lost. The buyers and workers were left behind on the balance sheet as liabilities. Oyster is the same mechanism, just British, just blue water, just priced in pounds instead of dollars. A craft tradition meets a cash flow crisis, and the cash flow crisis wins every time the deposit is not ring-fenced. The accent changes. The waterfall does not. So we name the betrayer, and the betrayer is not a person. It is the incentive structure of selling a hand-built, low-margin, multi-year product on customer cash. A boat builder operating on thin margins has one cheap source of working capital sitting right in front of it: the deposits of the next 10 customers. Every order taken funds the boats already in build. That is not fraud. It is the operating model, and it works flawlessly right up until orders slow or one large build runs over budget. The pattern is not accidental. When the inflow of new deposits cannot cover the outflow of unfinished builds, the structure does not bend. It breaks, and it breaks onto the people legally positioned at the back of the line. The press release is written in the present tense of confidence, orders are secure, builds continue. The insolvency code is written in the future tense of consequence, secured first, preferential second, unsecured last. Those two sentences cannot both be honored when the workforce is being dismissed. One of them is marketing, the other is law. The marine industry sells the illusion of stability through heritage branding, and heritage is the one asset the administrator cannot put a lien on. The skilled laminators and the molds are treated as disposable costs on a balance sheet. The brand pedigree is treated as the only thing worth buying back. The sailor who owns a 25-year-old oyster on the brokerage market holds a tangible asset he can survey, insure, and sail tomorrow. The buyer of a new build holds a highly leveraged contract against a company's continued solvency. One of those people owns a boat, the other owns a promise. So here is the fix, because alarm without a fix is useless to you. First, demand a stage payment structure tied to a separate trust or escrow account and get the account named in the contract. If your deposit is held in trust against your specific hull, an administrator cannot sweep it into the general estate. If the builder will not ring-fence it, you have just learned that your money becomes working capital the day it lands. Second, ask for a build stage payment bond or a deposit guarantee from a bank or insurer. This is a standard instrument in marine finance. It means a third party, not the boat builder, repays your staged money if the yard fails before delivery. No bond, no protection. Third, read the insolvency and title transfer clauses before you sign, and find the exact line that says when ownership of the hull passes to you. If title only transfers on final payment and delivery, then every pound you pay before that moment is an unsecured loan to the company. Have a marine solicitor confirm it in writing. Fourth, run the alternative on the same page as the dream. A proven blue water hull on the brokerage market is a tangible asset at a fraction of new build cost, surveyed before money changes hands. The 30% deposit on a new build can be the entire purchase price of a sound used ocean cruiser, plus a refit, plus the first year of cruising. The new build is the leveraged contract. The used hull is the boat. Protect the deposit or do not pay one. The cycle of acquisition, extraction, and closure is not a tragedy of unforeseen circumstances. It is the predictable output of trying to scale hand-built craft on customer deposits. The 2026 wind down at Saxon Wharf is the same arithmetic that produced the 2018 administration, run a second time at the same address. The buyer who wires a deposit is funding the operation. He is not securing a boat. The fiberglass does not care about the brand's pedigree. The insolvency courts do not care about the buyer's circumnavigation plan. A deposit is the only part of an ocean yacht that can be lost without ever touching salt water. If you are holding a contract for a new build right now, find the escrow clause today before the next press release, not after. Drop the name of a builder who ring-fenced your deposit in the comments and let the record show who actually delivers. The ledger does not lie. Subscribe to Yachts and Boats.